I did not expect that.
How far off the trail did you go?
Well, no, I went up the main trail and I went left instead of right, and I didn't realize there was a 40-degree angle. I'm good, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize it went 40 degrees at about the halfway point.
Oh, okay.
And I was wondering, boy, why does everyone go right on this trail?
I've learned to just always keep going left.
Well, that's when I went.
After you make the first right, then just keep left, left.
Yeah. So I took the first left because I thought I'd take the road less traveled.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that was a mistake.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm not with the park or anything.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm recording and live streaming, just so you know.
Oh, that's fun.
How many miles did you go? Do you have a pedometer or something on you?
No, I didn't have it on me at the time. I just took. They have the map. I can show you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
Where's the map?
It's on this side.
I just did the. I'm a 300-pound guy, so this was about the equivalent of what I can do. I just did the main trail all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna go ahead and try for the. Just because I'm a masochist, I'm gonna try for Vista Loop next week.
Is this your first day out here?
Yes. But I have a way of plodding forward through things. So I figured that I just keep on plodding forward because I couldn't stop. I mean, after I got to about here, I mean,
you reach that point where you're committed.
Yeah.
It's like I got to do something. I can turn around or I can keep going.
I was utterly committed at that point, but I want to go ahead and try Vista or at least Bosque next week. I think that'd be fun.
Take plenty of water to drink.
Yeah, I should have brought a pack or something like that. I was seriously considering bringing water, but decided against it.
Do you plan on coming here frequently?
Well, I only live a few miles away, so yeah.
Okay.
I didn't realize this was such a good trail.
I love it.
It was fun.
And it's fairly shaded the entire time.
Yeah, which is nice.
So you won't get too sun-blasted.
Which ones do you usually do?
I usually just do the main loop with my kids.
No, you just do the main loop?
Yeah.
That restaurant?
Actually, we do this little... Is that where it gets really steep, the Juniper Ridge?
Well, here's where, if you go to the left, this is where it goes majorly steep, right here, about 3,000 feet. And that's when you'll see people shooting past you because of the fact that the trail is so much steeper there. So after that, after I got here, Juniper Ridge gets a little bit steep up here. I didn't get a chance to go over there.
Oh.
But I want to take Vista because apparently that one has a lot of sheer drops.
Okay.
And from what the thing is saying. Plus, once I got to about here-ish, we had a really good view. I was really happy with it. So.
Yeah. I met a guy here the other day that didn't have a lot of time, but he was really interested in getting to the best view. And I told him Vista Loop.
Yeah.
You haven't hit that one yet, have you?
No, that's what I'm planning on doing, but that's a very difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I was dying on the main loop.
Well, just stick to the main one for a couple weeks, and then you'll be ready to hit the other stuff.
Well, I hadn't eaten, I hadn't drank, and I just was like, it shouldn't be too difficult. But, yeah, that was a mistake on my part. 2 eggs and a couple pieces of bacon do not a hiking meal make.
Ooh. Yeah, I think I'd probably lose it halfway through if I had done that.
Yeah, like I said, I have a tendency just to plod through everything. Master's degree, educate, all the way through my master's degree, all the way through my job, all the way through this. I just plod on, and eventually I reach the end.
What's your master's in?
Information security and assurance.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is it challenging?
If you more like if you have to like paperwork. If you enjoy paperwork, you'll enjoy that one. But
not really. I just like talking to people.
Yeah, it's mostly a paperwork type of deal.
Okay.
Situation. So it's just many years to work on it, get it over there.
Yeah. I don't know if you have 5 minutes or not, but I'm having short little chats with people to see if they hold a belief in their head that they think is probably true. What is that? Oh, there's a cross right there. We could talk about that.
What do you want to know?
Well, I'm fascinated why people hold beliefs and how they determine that the beliefs that are in their head are really true. What is your first name?
No, my name's Keith. Hey.
Keith?
Yeah.
Anthony.
Nice to meet you, Anthony.
Nice to meet you too. Are you willing to let me record it?
I suppose so.
Okay. Alright, let's make sure that that's going. I think it is. Yeah, alright. So you have a walking stick with the cross carved into it.
Mm-hmm.
How did you obtain this stick?
Made it myself.
Okay.
Inspired by some online pictures.
So you did some research on how to make a walking stick?
Well, this one I got a while ago because this is too strong and straight for. I believe this is ash, and it's really hard to find a straight staff of ash. You have to pretty much find somebody who's willing to actually spend the time to look for it. Yeah, so I like it simply because of the fact this is mostly to keep off animals.
Well, there are some on the trail too. I've heard people reporting wild boar.
Yeah.
I heard some rustling in the woods on Monday when I was here. I don't know what it was, but it sounded pretty big.
About most of the way up the trail, I saw a bunch of deer tracks that were intersecting, so it looks like they were feeding on the trail or something. But no, this wouldn't stop a boar or anything, but it would stop a few things.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware there would be boar up here. If there were, I would have brought something more substantial.
Now I haven't seen them here, but I have had people report that to me. Why did you choose ash for the wood?
I like good, dense hardwoods. I would have preferred ironwood, but it's so darn difficult to get here in the States and expensive. But this is considered one of the ironwoods, and I like a good, thick, stout, something that I can't break under any circumstance.
It's almost like metal, basically?
Pretty much.
Do you mind if I...
Yeah, go ahead.
That is sturdy.
I know.
Okay. All right, so... all right, let's examine this belief that you have. Do you want to unpack why you believe in the God?
Well, yeah, I'm Roman Catholic, practicing. Actually, not all my life. I was Roman Catholic until I was 18, then went agnostic until I was about 30. Then went back to practicing when I was 30.
What does agnostic mean to you? Because so many people have different definitions of what that is.
I believe there is something, but I'm not entirely sure what.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you circled back to Roman
Catholicism. Yeah.
You started with Roman Catholicism, you went to agnosticism, and then you circled back.
Nope.
Oh no?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
Okay. If at any time I summarize what I think you just said and I'm not right, please correct me. I want to understand what it is you believe and why.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it fair to say that you think the Roman Catholic God exists?
Yes.
Okay. How sure are you? 0 to 100?
100. Completely.
In my book of this scale, the scale to me is 0 to 100. 100% would be, I have no questions, I have no doubt, I'm 100% confident that it's true.
Yes. That's about where I am. That is where I am, yeah.
Okay. Why, Keith?
Actually it came out because the more I studied, flat out science, the more I looked into physical science, the more I looked into chemical science, the more I looked into quantum mechanics, and by no means am I an expert in any of these, even remotely. I mean, I'm absolutely horrendous when it comes to math. But the more I looked into it, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that everything has to have a beginning somewhere. Something has to start everything, otherwise math and the universe just simply doesn't start. I mean, you have to have some sort of leaping point. I mean, nothing doesn't come from nothing, and you got to start. You got to start with absolutely something, and as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what God is. He was the pivotal point to start everything going, and it was necessary because you can't start an engine without fuel. So, or even have an engine without steel, or countless other things. You got to start somewhere.
And how did you determine that start was the Roman Catholic God?
Well, going off the that's more of a theological question. Simply because of the fact that it makes the most sense to me when I think about it. When I sit there and think about all these different gods that used to from various lores and everything else that used to compete with each other, it didn't make too much sense. And when finally everyone came together and said there's just one, things started moving forward a little bit more smoothly and making more sense, because at that point you could start having things like a central belief system and that sort of thing, and moving forward from there, and you can have an idea of what things are supposed to be based off of, prophets and saints and various other writings. Whereas if you have multiple gods or you have a pantheon or something like that, everything can conflict with each other or contradict each other, or even cause conflicts between two different believers of two different gods. So
True.
Yeah.
Makes more sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that a person could hold a belief because it makes the most sense to them, but the belief not actually be true?
Yes. I mean, look at anti-vaxxers.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, anti-vaxxers have all the evidence in the world. Okay, when it comes to religion, you're dealing with the metaphysical, and science has a tendency can't explain that away yet. When it comes to vaccinations and such, the guy who originally released the first paper was found to be a fraud, and he lost his medical license and everything else. And there's millions upon millions of articles on the internet saying they don't cause autism. But boy, you'll meet some people that just have the absolute hold on to dead on that vaccinations cause autism or are dangerous for people.
Okay.
And even though there's lots of science saying no, that is simply not the case.
Well, how is your belief in this God any different than somebody that might be holding a belief because it just makes sense to them?
It depends on the belief, like I said. If it's a religious belief, that's going to be a long discussion and figuring things out, finding middle ground and working from there, and then finding out if it's which one makes the most sense in the end.
Are you saying that if I were to believe in a God, as long as it made sense to me, I'd be okay believing in it because it's a supernatural claim?
I can't change your mind. So, I mean, I could talk to you about it. I can try to convince you my way is better or my way is more believable. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if that isn't something that you're willing to accept, then what am I going to do? Pull out evidence? I mean, it's just not going to happen. So,
Why is that?
Because I don't have any physical evidence saying that that the Roman Catholic God is there and your God is not.
You have no evidence to support your belief in the Roman Catholic God?
Because there's no, other than philosophical, non-physical objects are simply not there. So it's just a matter of philosophy, faith, that sort of thing. I mean, the very definition of faith is believing in something that you don't have any tangible evidence for as of yet, but still believing in it.
Is that why you can be 100% sure that the God exists?
Yes.
What was your definition of faith?
My definition of faith is anything that is, even though you don't have any tangible proof about it, you can believe it at the time. And you're willing to believe it.
A willingness to believe something without proof.
Exactly.
Cool.
Physical proof.
Faith is a willingness to believe something without physical proof.
Correct.
That's probably one of the most concise definitions I think I've heard of faith.
Oh, thank you.
Sometimes we might spend 10 minutes just trying to nail that down, and you got it right there.
I think about it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you find yourself thinking about faith?
I mean, you end up, when you argue online a lot, you have to have some sort of concise, you have to have some sort of concise argument about why you believe what you do. Because otherwise it just becomes a string of whys, And like I've always explained to people, science is the how, religion is the why.
Mm-hmm. Do you think people could use faith to arrive at completely different God beliefs besides the Roman Catholic God?
Yes. But, it also has to come from, it depends on what their source is. When I talk about my faith, I have 2,000 years of writings, traditions, philosophy, all these other, I'm literally standing on the backs of giants.
But hold on, but if faith is believing something, a willingness to believe something without proof, could somebody use faith without even having those historical documents or biblical claims or the Quran or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
It just makes it a little easier for me to accept it when I have so much behind me.
Are you saying that you would prefer to have evidence and proof to support your belief?
Oh yeah, definitely. But that at that point it becomes known, no longer faith.
I think I got a little confused there. You would prefer to use evidence to conclude that the God existed.
Well, philosophy.
Can you help me out?
The philosophy, the writings, that sort of thing, are non-physical evidence. So no matter what happens, those can be explained in different ways. They can be talked about in different ways. They can be determined in different ways. When you have physical evidence, then at that point that becomes an absolute truth. No question about it. This rock is here.
Yeah.
When it comes to faith, I may have 100% faith, but at the same time that is literally 100% faith because that's something I believe with no tangible proof.
Near the start of this conversation, you were talking about how you researched the type of wood that would be appropriate for a walking stick.
Yes.
For you, personally.
For me, personally.
And you did some research, and you settled on, you would have preferred the hardwood, or ironwood, and you settled on ash. If a person wanted to find the best walking stick for them, would you advise them to do research and locate evidence, or go off of faith?
For them, they'd have to do some research because different walking stick is different. Walking sticks are different for everyone. Because I use a relatively short, stout, thick, and in some would say a very, very heavy walking stick. Other people will use things like aluminum. Other people will use things like probably even pine, depending on their, that and the fact that since I'm so heavy, I had to have a stick I know can support my weight without bowing out like I've had, some of them do. So it just came, after researching everything else, this was what supports me.
What do you think the outcome would be if most people just used faith when determining the best walking stick for them?
I'd probably end up breaking a lot. Because I picked up a few sticks off the trail that I thought were decent, then they would break underneath my weight when I put my weight down on it, especially in an awkward situation. This one I know isn't going to break in an awkward situation.
Yeah. If you had the option, I'm not sure if I asked this already, I might have. I'll wait for that plane to go by.
I know, it kind of sucks when there's a plane flying overhead in a nature trail.
It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's frustrating. My possibly last question here for you, Keith, would be, if you had proof, evidence, sufficient evidence to conclude that your God existed with 100%, or you had faith at your disposal, and you can choose one or the other, which of the two would you prefer to have?
Faith. Because at 100%, God's there. At that point, free will starts becoming into question. And I'd much rather go off of my faith and not know, and have that faith that He's there, rather than know for certain He's there. Because at that point, it's no longer a religion at that point. It's just fact.
You prefer the mystery of not knowing?
Yeah. Because it just makes things a lot more difficult once because then it just opens up a whole nother branch of, following and everything else.
Do you think that there would be less confusion if there was evidence for the God existing?
Oh yeah, it would be. But at that point,
Wait, less or more confusion?
Less confusion, a lot less.
There would be less confusion if there was evidence for your God existing.
Correct.
Yet you would prefer faith over evidence.
Mm-hmm. Because when it comes, part of the thing about Roman Catholicism is faith is what it's about. Despite lack of physical evidence that God is there for you to be holding to your hand, you are willing to believe in Him and follow Him. But once you bring into the equation, oh yeah, God's here, and here's the physical evidence, and now you know for a fact that He's completely omnipresent and always there. At that point, you're no longer following God out of love or devotion. You're following God out of, being watched. And at that point, it isn't so much love anymore. It's just following. I mean, does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I can put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when we think about claims that vaccines cause autism, or the right walking stick for me, those would be situations where we would rely on evidence, we would rely on facts. Faith would possibly even be detrimental in those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
The willingness to believe something without proof.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when it comes to this particular belief in your life, you would actually prefer to use faith to be 100% certain.
Because at that point, I'm not following out of fear or anything. I'm not following out of I better follow him. Because I'm playing by his rules now, and so absolutely, I must do everything perfect now at this point on. Now, at this point, with faith, and you follow God and believe in God, you follow Him because you love Him and you're devoted to Him, not because you feel like you're being watched.
You've said a couple times now that if I had evidence of the God existing, it would be like the God watching me, but I don't quite understand. I mean, is the God not able to watch you if you use faith to believe in it?
He's able to watch me, but I'm following. At the same time, I feel like I'm doing right by Him. I don't know for certain, but I feel like I'm doing everything right by Him. And I'm following Him because I want to follow Him.
But how do you know that you're actually believing something that's really true if you're using faith to conclude it?
Actually, the Roman Church actually brought that up. They brought it up, and they've said very plainly, we don't know for certain, but we figure this is the best manual. So, I mean, like I said, once you know if something's there, at that point, I mean, God requests that we follow and love Him without the tangible proof. Once it's there, everyone will of course be at that point following Him. But the question is, at that point, you're not following Him out of love. You're following because you have to.
This will be my last question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of all the people that are using faith but concluding that a completely different God exists, and they're 100% certain that it's true?
They're probably right in their own way. I mean,
Allah?
Well, Allah. I mean,
Vishnu?
Allah, well,
Zeus?
Vishnu, Zeus. Like I said before, the pantheons made things. Once we brought it all together, it made a lot more sense to me. If it makes more sense to them, more power to them. But I mean, unless I'm not going to try to convince. I will talk to them and try to convince them my way is better. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if I can't convince them, it's just their belief. I mean, just as long as they're not attacking me in the street, that's all I really care about. I mean, I'm not doing it to them. I really hope they don't do it to me. That's all I really want. In the end, I mean, even as Pope Francis said, eventually all roads that follow that lead to God, eventually all roads have some method of truth that lead to God. So, I mean, yeah, they may believe in Thor and Vishnu and, Allah, but at the same time, there are aspects of those things that could lead to God. eventually, if they're so inclined. But, I mean, it gets so difficult once you start digging into, whether or not are other people's beliefs valid or that sort of thing. Because once you start going into the territory of, well, their belief not valid, at that point you start edging into dangerous areas where, eventually you can go into a very dark place.
But I think what you're saying is that a person's beliefs are valid if they use faith to conclude that a God exists.
Right. And they're not violent.
Thank you so much for your time. I got a card here for you.
Yeah, no
It's got my email on it. And if you want to chat some more, hit me up on email. Or maybe I'll see you on the trail.
Are you streaming on Twitch or something?
No, I haven't done Twitch. I'm using Periscope. I don't even know if they're still down there.
I have no idea what Periscope is.
It's live streaming.
I was wondering what platform. You don't use a platform yet, like Twitch or YouTube?
Mm-mm.
How's your viewing numbers?
On my YouTube channel? Or on Periscope?
Both.
What do you mean by viewing numbers?
Like
how many people are watching live right now? There were 50 or 60 before I started talking to you.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know.
I probably scared them off.
I really don't know where we're at right now.
I do that.
Would you be interested in fielding a question from the viewing audience?
I could field a question from the viewing audience if they want. Sure.
Okay. So, hopefully you guys are still down there. They say we like you, Keith. Okay.
They say that now, but they just don't know me.
Alright, so I'm going to look for a good question here. There are 62 people watching right now. That's a good question. I usually ask this one. Okay. Yeah, that was a good talk. Okay, I'm going to take that question. They say you're awesome, great talk. Okay, I'm going to put the... can you hold this for a sec?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the question from somebody, and I couldn't see their name. It's hard for me to see their names, but one of the questions from the person was, you're 100% confident that your belief is true.
Mm-hmm.
Could you be mistaken in the belief?
I won't know until I die.
Can you figure it out in this life? Because if the belief isn't true and there is no afterlife...
If I can figure it out in this life, at that point it's no longer faith. It's just, at that point I have the evidence. The
way that you'd be able to determine that it's not true is with evidence.
Yeah.
Is that why you prefer faith?
Yeah, it is, because like I said, it just from what I've pulled so far and from what science can explain, that's why I have my faith.
No, but what I'm interested in, and the question was, if you were mistaken on the belief, would you want to know it?
Yeah. But I mean...
Is faith preventing you from discovering that you are mistaken on the belief?
If that was... I branched out way too much into Buddhism and everything else for me to feel that it is. Because during my agnostic time, I really branched out to a lot of other faiths and looked into them.
But just to stay focused on this one thing. Now, I want to wrap it up because this is going... I mean, it's great. I'm enjoying the talk. But I have to wrap it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm thirsty as all get out.
You are, yes. And I've got that water in there too if you need it. So, what I thought was interesting there is that you said something to the effect of, if I had evidence, I could actually learn that I was mistaken on the belief. Mm-hmm. And earlier you said you actually have a preference for faith over evidence. And I guess what I'm wondering is if one of the reasons why you prefer faith over evidence is because you could possibly never know that you were actually mistaken in the belief.
Correct. That makes sense. Yeah, that's about right. I mean, where I'm at in my life right now, I'm 100% sure. And I feel confident in that 100%. If I got evidence saying that I was wrong, then I'd have to start restructuring everything that I believe. And so, I mean, that's exhausting. It really is. That's exhausting as an uphill trail without any water. I mean, I restructure when I was agnostic, I ended up restructuring everything that I believed for a long period of time. And when it came time for me to finally make a decision, and I started restructuring back, it was an exhausting, difficult period of time because, when you have evidence suddenly that you're wrong, the first thing you have to do once you get evidence saying that you're wrong about something, you have to humble yourself. You have to say out loud to yourself, I was absolutely wrong. And that's very much the reason why many times people are unwilling to, when they have that 100% faith thing going on, they're unwilling to say they were wrong. And are unwilling, because at that point you have to humble yourself. You have to go back on a lot of things that you've said, and you have to say a lot of things. You have to, tell people, when other people bring it up, you have to mention that you are wrong about something. And when you're among a group of your peers or something like that, and they've known you for years is one way, and then suddenly you're going another direction entirely, and you have to admit that you're wrong. Well, first of all, you're worried how people are going to view you at that point, that you have just admitted that you were wrong. Because no one does that nowadays, really. Flat out admit they were wrong.
But now I understand that belief revision, because that's really what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Belief revision is uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's scary, it could be humbling, like you mentioned.
Alienating.
Alienating. You
Yes.
can lose a lot of people that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me, Keith, that because the restructuring process is so involved, that you're reluctant to open yourself up to it, even though you could possibly be mistaken on the belief?
It's more the reason why I prefer faith over the evidence. Because
it's too much work?
To turn into too much work at that point. Remember, like I was telling you about how when I walk in that trail, and I got to that point that I had no choice but to continue walking? Because if I had gone back, it would have done just as much work going the other direction, if not more. I mean, that's pretty much how it works for me. I mean, it's just a matter of, I finally have gotten myself on the trail, and I gotten myself, I feel, to the point that going back would just be a huge amount of work to walk on back. And at that point, I've left behind a lot of people, and I've left behind a lot of stuff. I've left behind a lot of my beliefs just to get back onto a different trail and start that process all over again. And the trail I'm on right now, I'm not an angry person or a violent person or a belittling or insulting or anything else person. But, people, I don't know why, but they think I'm a pretty decent person. But I mean, the path that I'm on, the trail I'm walking on right now, is one that seems like it has even if it doesn't have what I expect at the end of it, it's giving me what I feel like I need right now in my life. And it's not bringing others down or expecting others to come down with me. It's not expecting other people to walk the exact same trail I'm walking. It's not causing other people to go off their own trails, and so that's why I feel like if I one day got evidence saying, obviously if I got evidence saying that the trail was washed out ahead, obviously I'm changing the trail, but I'm not going to like it, and things are going to be more difficult for me, and I'm going to have to start plotting, but at the same time, I really prefer my trail not to get washed out, so it's just a matter of that. It's just you got to stick with. You eventually have to settle, because if you don't grab onto something eventually, if you don't grab onto something that for certain is real, and you don't grab it right, then you just go to bad places. You just turn into a bad human being. You hurt other people around you because you are still so unsure of yourself that if you see other people who are sure, you could get jealous, angry, you know.
But you're 100% sure?
Mm-hmm.
Are you avoiding a possible course correction because finding truth is too much work?
No, I didn't. It's just, at this point, I think I've seen enough of the truth necessary for me. And there's no physical evidence saying I'm wrong at this point. And,
well, you're not even open to physical evidence, I think, right?
Oh, I'm open. I mean, like I said, if the physical evidence comes my way, I kind of have to accept it. I mean.
Oh, okay.
I mean that's the reality of the situation. If somebody one day brings me physical evidence, oh, God's not real. Here's the physical evidence. I mean, what am I going to do? You know, at that point, there's physical evidence. At that point, I have to accept that reality. I could still keep to the teachings, the philosophy, go on that route. But at the same time, would I believe in God anymore at that point? Well, I mean, at that point I was thrown physical evidence that he doesn't exist anymore. I mean, how could I? At that point, I'm in denial, you know, and that's not the way to go through life, is through in denial. I mean, that's what leads to a lot of problems in somebody's life when they're in denial. Because once you're in denial, you've lost the ability to be humble. And, you know, that leads to most problems, is when people lose the ability to be humble, to recognize when they were wrong, to recognize that they weren't doing something, they weren't thinking right, or doing something they should be doing. And, yeah.
Is it a humble position to be 100% certain on anything?
Yeah, you can be 100% certain on something and still be humble. Because that 100% is your personal 100%, how you feel about something. That you're not sitting up at night wondering if you're wrong, if you are doing the right thing, if you are going down the right path. Once you have that 100% in your head, it opens you up to... Once you have that 100% in your head, but you know at the same time that if something changed, you could change, you can stop worrying about it. You can stop thinking about it so hard. You can stop, you know, rolling around in your head wondering if you're right or wrong about that situation.
Well, but if somebody's 100%, are you saying that they would not be open to evidence? Or they would be?
See, at that point now you're getting back into the humble factor. You know, are they willing to humble themselves and listen again once they are 100%? I can say I'm willing to listen again, even though I'm at my 100%. That 100% means that I go through life not worrying about it or wondering or thinking about, oh, is there a God or is there not? That 100% means that I can move forward on that aspect of my life and feel comfortable about it. When somebody's at 100% dead and unwilling to humble themselves, and you come to them with evidence saying you're completely wrong, and here's why, and that if they're dead set 100%, at that point they're unwilling to listen, because at that point they have to tell you that they were wrong. I mean, I go through life telling people I'm wrong all the time. I mean, I have to, because I make a lot of mistakes in my life, and if that 100% is there for me for right now. That's my rock. And if something comes along and sweeps up that rock, well, I mean, I can't just give up. I gotta get back on that 100%, or I gotta figure it out. You know, it's just a matter of that. So, I mean, you can be certain of something, but be willing to change your view based on the evidence that's presented to you. I can be 100%, you know, certain that there's no alien life, you know, out there in the universe. I mean, we haven't had any contact or anything like that, but if one day one of them flies on down in a little flying saucer and waves, at that point I can't be like, oh, they're not real, you know, they don't exist. You know, I have to accept that fact from that point forward, that, you know, there are alien life forms at that point. Or, you know, I can be 100% certain that a family member is going to be reliable. You know, somebody who I've always had faith in, trust in. And then evidence comes along that they weren't the person I thought they were. You know, I mean, how many times have you had people have family members that have done absolutely awful things, and then people are want to look completely past that, deny it ever happened, still insist that the person is still good, wholesome, holy, what have you, but all the evidence says they are a horrible, horrible human being. That's the difference between being 100% one way and 100% the other way.
Sure.
You know, denial and, you know, the willingness to admit that you are wrong in something.
Well, that was great talk. I really appreciate your time.
Oh yeah,
and
no problem.
I would love to meet with you at some other time. If I spot you on the trail here, I would like to pick this up and start talking about what evidence you would accept.
Okay.
But we don't have to get into that now. I've been holding you up longer than I probably should have.
I don't even know what time I got here. Man, I'm hungry.
What time is it?
2:50.
Okay. I'll be out here for a little while longer. But thank you so much, man.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Say goodbye to your viewers for me. Have a good one, everyone else. And how long was the last time I talked to somebody? About an hour. No, they responded about it. Oh my god, I've been here since 12. Alright, I'm gonna go grab some food.
See you later.
Yeah, no problem.
Great chatting with you.
Great chatting with you too.
Bye-bye.